and I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Jerry Franklin Poe, and we are the host of Technology Tuesday. Listen, let us know where you're tuning in from, which city,
Here
and
with
if you are
my
catching us on the
good
live
friend,
broadcast
Mr.
or
Jerry Franklin
hashtag
Poe, and we
replay
are
if you're
the
catching us
host of
on the replay.
Technology
I'd
Tuesday.
like to
Listen,
thank
let
you
us
in
know where you're
advance
tuning
for
in from,
letting us know
which
which
city
city,
you are here
and
with.
in that we are like to ask you to, if you know someone who should be tuning in right now, go ahead and let them know that our show is starting so that they can join in with us today on Technology Tuesday. With that, this show is going to open up your eyes and your mind to something that's really important, and that is how to kind of get out of our own way. I think it's really important that we take a look at ourselves, take a look at our procedures, our processes. We do that for our business. We audit things in our business all the time. We look at how things are working, what's not working. And sometimes we need to turn that lens on ourselves to figure out what's working with us and what's not working with us so that we can be better for our own businesses. And that's what we're going to dive in today on Technology Tuesday. We're going to get started right now.
All right, folks. It's Technology Tuesday. That's right. Greg Russell, Jerry Franklin Poe here in the building every Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, bringing you that practical knowledge, the practical application so you get practical solutions for your business. Our focus is systems to create a lifestyle for your business rather than having your business run your life.
Yes, sir. Listen, man, I can't wait to dive into today and share some things. But before we dive into that, let me share some things that have been going on with me and what I've been working on behind the scenes. So I've been, really looking at how a lot of people are looking at and considering and testing out how to use AI in their business. And, I'm also doing the same thing. And so when I'm setting things up, I noticed that some of the few things that were important was understanding what should be used with AI to automate certain things, and looking at which order some of those things should be automated, and most importantly, how to do it in a way where I'm not just adding things to do and skills that cause more confusion. So for me, it was more the process, looking at what should I automate, and then how to actually set that up where it actually fits into a system within the business, not just a thing to do. And so the infrastructure is real important. So that's what I've been working on. And so, part of that is understanding what do I need to automate, and then what tools do I need for the AI to be able to work with? It needs to have access to certain things. And that in itself, how to give it access in a way that's secure, how to give it access in a way that's the right way to give it access. Because if you've worked with any of this technology, there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? There's lots of ways to give it access, but what's the right way? What's the secure way? What's the way that will not have you wasting time? And so what I noticed is that every time I was trying to work with it and have it access certain things, it would take so long for it to do. And I was like, this is at a time where it's AI is so smart, it should be able to figure out a faster, better way. And so then it all comes down to the communication you had. And so I started asking questions and communicating in a way that's what's the best way to connect in a way, right? And so I learned some things, that there are some ways to connect where it doesn't have to just open up a browser and take a screenshot and then read the screenshot. Like, that uses up a lot of tokens. It's slow, and I found a much better way. So if you're interested in learning what I'm learning, then you got to make sure you join us in the group at technologytuesday.com, and I will be sharing that with those things with you guys inside the group. So that's what's been going on with me, Jerry. I've been excited about the progress I've been making with the AI, and doing it in a way that's not just where I'm so excited that I'm just doing stuff just cause. I'm really taking the time to do it the right way. And so love to share those specific things with you guys in the group. So Jerry, that's what's up with me, man. What's going on with you?
Now, man, I think what you just shared is a good tie-in to what we're going to talk about today in terms of the execution gap, because what you described in terms of how you handled it and the speed to action or the speed to results, depending on how you evaluate the problem, that could have taken you longer or could have been a roadblock. It could have been a stumbling factor to actually get, as you said earlier, to why we sometimes we get in our own way.
Yeah, yeah. So, what is this topic that you're going to discuss with us today?
And we were having some discussions behind the scenes as to what would be some good things to discuss on the show. And one of the things that we both agreed upon was the topic of the execution gap. Why smart entrepreneurs still can't get out of their own way. Like why some people get stuck and in terms of their progress and their proficiency. And this is something that is quite fascinating, and it just dawned on me, like as I was about to start talking about this. I just spent the weekend like binge watching a bunch of episodes I had on my DVR of Shark Tank, and I was trying to clean up the memory. So I think I had like 6 episodes of Shark Tank that I hadn't watched yet, right? And as I'm listening to these episodes and I'm thinking about execution, it's a constant theme that comes up a lot of times with business owners, solopreneurs, people who maybe have a small partnership, not a large organization, and it's the idea versus the execution versus the result. So the idea that we have, what we do to execute in terms of how we get the results. And basically, if you look at this from a simple definition, I won't go too complex. The simple way to look at this is the execution gap is knowing exactly what you need to do to grow your business, but sometimes we find ways to avoid doing what we really need to do, or excuses, or there's things that get into a way that block us from doing what we actually know that we need to do. And this show, Technology Tuesday, um, ironically, technology can be one of those excuses. Sometimes we get so caught up in what stuff do we need, what stuff do we have, how does the stuff work, we get sometimes paralysis analysis. So you're paralyzed by your overthinking, right? People will get their CRM, right? They'll get Entrepreneur, or they'll get Go High Level, and they'll have the service, but not actually do the things that they need to do to put it into place, to execute it, to set up the systems, to create the sequences. They'll have the tools, but the tools aren't actually working for them. Are you dropping a little buzzer, dropping a
Man,
buzzer?
listen, man. Let me, because we sometimes we talk about like people, but let me talk about me, right? Because
Okay.
the people are, it's like we bring up these topics, but we're bringing up because we've okay. Let me say I've experienced. I ain't even gonna put you under the bus. I'm gonna talk about me. I put me under the bus. So listen, this show, I had the idea for it many years ago. I purchased the domain technologytuesday.com 18 years ago. Now we've only been consistent for the last 5 years, but I had the idea.
6 years.
Yes, 6 years. Thank you, sir. 6 years. But I had the idea and started it several times and not been consistent with it. But now we've been consistent for 6 years. But I had the idea and the thought 18 years ago. And so it took me trial and error and time to. So when we bring up this topic about you may not be doing the things that you should be doing, or you have the idea, don't think that, it's kind of like pointing the finger at you. We all have experiences. That's why we're talking about it. And I think it's important, to be able to do it, be more consistent and fix things faster than I did with this show. So that's why I wanted to bring this point to this particular point that you're making right now, so it can show people exactly what we're talking about.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the solutions, one of the ways to get past this, to fill the gap, so to speak, ties directly into why it's been consistent for 6 years. And what can be the blocks? Now, these aren't all the blocks. These aren't this, and we could spend all day, all week, all month talking about all the blocks. And as I shared with Greg, before we actually went about doing today's show is that this may turn into a series. I may come back and revisit this topic, and I won't say may, I will. We're going to revisit this topic because there are so many things that could factor into our execution gap. And now a couple of them, a couple of root causes, right? That we can just discuss today. As I mentioned, analysis paralysis, the perfectionism trap, right? Thinking that everything has to be perfect before we actually do it. And I fall into this trap sometimes myself, realizing that I want it to be like 100% level of excellence before I do something, and that could lead to no revenue versus it could still be sloppy and still make money. Like you can make money off of something that's not perfect versus people are trying to make something perfect and not actually making any money.
Mm.
And so this is a balancing act, perfection being the enemy of good. And that's actually a quote. I don't know who said it, but I heard it many, many times that perfection is the enemy of progress because we're trying to get it to be so perfect that we're not doing anything. And this sometimes can cause the issue, right? This perfection progress thing, that PP, right? We talk about alliteration. Sometimes people are performing, but they don't have progress,
Mm.
right? Because you could be doing stuff in your business, but the things that you're actually doing aren't things that actually make money. I remember when I first started, and this was a long, long time ago. 20, no, not even 20, 30 years ago. 30 that I started a small part-time business, and sometimes I used to organize my pencils, and instead of making phone calls. But it felt like I was doing something because I'm at my desk and it's like I'm straightening stuff up and like I'm working on my business right now because my desk needs to be organized. But that was an excuse as to not make a phone call because I was afraid if I made a call or what else I going to say, how am I going to say it, what if they say no, and I was avoiding the actual pain of rejection, the discomfort of the conversation, and those pencils being all color coded or organized or straightening up the pens and the folders seemed easier to do, but it felt like I actually did some work. People like, did you work on your? Yeah, I did a lot of work today. I was really busy, right? But I was performing activities, but I wasn't actually being productive and creating revenue or making progress in the business. So these are things that occur a lot of times that are causing the execution gap. Now, Greg, from our perspective with Technology Tuesday, some of us fall into the shiny object syndrome.
Yes.
We're always chasing like the new gadget or new trend. Think about it, folks. Like how bombarded are we with ads? So for those who don't know, I just started playing golf about maybe almost a year ago, right? And last May it was probably the first time I went out there to start playing golf. So and it'll be almost a year. Now, because I play golf now, I'm seeing a lot more stuff on all my social media platforms about golf. Every day, if I scroll through Facebook, if I go through Instagram, there's all these golf things popping up. I'm being bombarded with tips and strategies and solutions
Mm.
and gadgets and things and non things and all this stuff about, this can make you better with your golf score. This can make you better with your golf swing. It can be overwhelming. Now, factor that into your business. How many things are you seeing where someone's saying, this is the key, this is the answer, this is the way, this is the method, this is the solution, this is what you've been missing? So sometimes we get so caught up on what's new, fancy, and the reality is we never even mastered the original principle.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's important, especially now because with AI, um, AI things like Claude Code right now are really really popular. Claude Cowork, Claude Code, Claude. The shift that Anthropic made to shut down its part of active in open claw, and so a lot of times when we are learning these things, the shiny object is interesting when it comes to the AI because the stuff is happening every day. Like every day could be a whole new learning activity on one particular part of that AI. And then if you throw in other AIs, and then you and then you throw in the fact that these AIs update every day and they come out with new stuff. I mean, it's just mind-boggling about how many new shiny objects there are when we're dealing with the topic of AI. And so for someone who's really into this tech stuff, I've been doing it slower because I understand the excitement factor of what you can do that you weren't able to do before is one part of it. The other part of it that I'm think is very interesting is that your ability to take advantage of it really comes back down to the very basics of computing and how well you can technically organize your folders on your computer. So it's like all this advanced stuff comes down to the very basic stuff of organizing your files on your computer. Some people will understand that, some won't. I will get into it later, but I didn't want to
Nah, man, you're
go
good.
too
You're
deep
good.
into that.
What you
But yeah.
just said, yeah, what you said ties into a quote from a guy named Michael Oliver. I read his book. Man, this is probably back in the early 2000s. And his one of the quotes he said in his book is that methods are many, principles are few.
Mm,
Methods change, principles never do.
yes, I
And
like
I'll say
that.
it again for
I
those who
like
didn't
that.
catch it in the back, right? Methods are many, principles are few. Methods change, principles never do.
Yeah,
So,
I heard it similarly as processes, right? Principles are few and processes are many, but same concept.
right, it's the way to get something done, right? The way, and because for many times, like our process is a method, right? The process is a method to do something, and the process or the method changes all the time, from print, right? Think about the early. There's a book that I have. I'm mentioning. I know I'm mentioning. I'm dropping books on you all. It's like book. A book that I have called Personality Wins, which breaks down the presidential elections from George Washington all the way up to the current administration in terms of how personality factors in to who we vote for. And what personalities would win out depended on mechanism, depended on process, depended on methodology. When all people had was the print medium, right? All they could read was newspapers. It didn't matter what you sounded like because you weren't hearing the voice.
Mm,
Then radio came about. So now you can hear people speaking through the radio. Then it shifted to television. So now when you get to television, it matters what you sound like and also what you look like on camera and how your mannerisms are on camera. Do you look nervous? Do you look confident? Right? So the principles of how we communicate have always been the same, but the methodology in terms of how those principles are delivered would alter how people take action. So how we communicate, right? Engaging, being likable, all that stuff, it's been consistent for years, but how it factors into the mechanism, the method of the process changes whether it's visual, auditory, or kinesthetic.
hmm
So this ties into what you're talking about with AI, right? You said with AI there was very fascinating because we have the chat GPTs, we have the Geminis, we have the Claude, we have the Copilot, we have all that. But then we got a whole nother section of AI, Greg, which is the SaaS AI.
Yes,
So it's
sir.
like all I gotta do is like do this dot AI, and it's like picture dot AI, and write me whatever I want dot AI. So we get people who are caught up in the SaaS illusion
Yeah.
that if I buy this piece of software, it's basically going to cancel out a business problem. But the problem that you might be having in your business isn't the software. A lot of it goes back to the user, right? That I remember when I was working as a almost like a help desk person, like many years ago, early, when you're starting and you're in college and you part time jobs, and like
I
many
keep
times
I
the
keep I
issue
keep
wasn't the computer.
I keep learning about the many adventures of Jerry.
Well, I had a lot of jobs back in the day. My mom and my dad always believed that you should be working. So it was like they were always trying to get me and my brother to have another job or do another job. So before I became a full time entrepreneur, right? Before we even met each other, um, I worked at the University of Delaware, and I would help people in the library, and sometimes I would help them with their computer problems. And many cases, it was something simple that the user had done. They would blame the computer. It's like, oh, the computer's not acting right, or the computer's not doing this, the computer's not doing that. Then you would come over and be like, press a button because they had clicked like caps lock. Why is it all capital letters? Or why is the mouse not working? It's like, oh, and it's something simple.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times people are looking for a software to correct something that they haven't necessarily worked on from a skill set level. And regardless of whether you have the AI or not, how do you know the copy is good if you never learn how to write copy? Right? So these are things that you need to factor in when you're thinking about execution. And to make this full circle, so like I know people are wondering, like, well, Jerry, what can we do to help fill in the execution gap? Greg mentioned a couple things here. One, I want to give you a suggestion is to go back and do an audit of your activity for maybe a week or 30 days of your business. What are you actually doing every day? Just take an audit of what your day looks like and where your time is going and what are you focused on. And start to create a structure for yourself because execution ties directly into discipline. And discipline becomes easier. So this ties into Greg talking about Technology Tuesday. Discipline becomes easier with partnership when you have someone to hold you accountable. Now, I'm not going to give you every solution that I have on my list. Today, we're just going to talk about one. And one is having a what we call radical accountability. Establish radical accountability. It was a lot harder for Greg to keep Technology Tuesday consistent when it was Greg trying to hold Greg accountable. Is that right, Greg?
Yes, sir.
So
I would
I
have
suggested to
excuses.
Greg,
I
right?
would have
Yeah, yeah.
excuses.
We like you're like, oh, it's something else. Something's popping up, right? That seems like it's a better waste use of our time. So what happened about 6 years ago? COVID hit, and I called Greg. I said, "Hey, man, I know you've been wanting to make Technology Tuesday major, right? You want to try to take it to the next level. Here's what we can do, man. Because I'm not traveling as much anymore, right? Because COVID had everybody on lockdown. Let me be on there with you, and you can just talk to me because I know how difficult it is to talk to yourself. A lot of people are in their studio trying to create videos, but there's nobody around for them to talk to, and it's challenging. It's uncomfortable to talk to a camera and there's nobody there. To talk to a screen, there's nobody there. It's easier when you have somebody there to talk to, somebody there to meet you, to have an appointment to be with, because now you don't want to let that other person down. So, who can you partner with to create accountability for each other, to hold yourself accountable for your execution in your business? So, someone that you can report to say, hey, this is what I've been doing. What have you been doing to make sure that you don't show up with zero? Because no one wants to be like, oh, I didn't do anything, because now you look bad to your friend, your partner, whoever it is that you're working with. So Technology Tuesday has been consistent for 6 years because I said, hey, I will be there with you to help to make sure that you have somebody to talk to, somebody that can respond to you, somebody that's going to be like, yeah, because sometimes for you to watch the show, sometimes I don't say anything all show except for like, yep, that's right, okay,
That's not true, but I hear you.
right? I just be sitting there and I was like, "Yep, that's right, Greg. Well, nope, nope, you're right on, man. You're right on." And that's all I'm supposed to do because it was about him not talking to himself. So two things that you can do: one, do an audit, and one, accountability. An audit: look at what you're actually doing in your business for the last week, the last month. What are your actual daily activities, daily steps? Where is your time going? What are you focusing on? And then number two, accountability. Who do you have to hold you accountable? So create some radical accountability in your life And that will help you get engaged and start to develop some of the discipline necessary to get out of our own way and make our execution gap shorter and to fill in some of the holes that we have in our business.
Yes, sir, man. I appreciate that. I think that it's really good. Um, it's interesting that you said to do an audit, because when it comes to like looking at AI and how it can help you, is the first thing you do is automate what are your existing processes? What are your things that you're doing? What are you doing consistently that we could possibly use AI to do so that you could free up that time for other things? So when it comes to that, it's the same thing. You got to look at what's going on first. That's the first step. And so when you have that and you've did that, it's easier to not be excited about some of the shiny objects, because you're like, that's cool, but that's not what I need right now. That's not helping me with the thing that I have identified as the thing that I could replace, right? And so instead of looking at it that way, you have something to be like, that's not going to help me right now. When you don't do that, then you're more excited about, oh, that looks nice and that looks good. And we're, and listen, the shiny object thing is a challenge for a lot of people, including myself right now, because there's some pretty cool stuff out there. So but the process in doing better and using it better is doing that audit. So Jerry, thank you so much for that. I hope we help a lot of people when it comes to this topic and being able to figure out how to, you know, get more out of the entrepreneur that we are, um, going forward. So thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Nah, man, it's good to go. It's the idea of you have to. I'm trying to remember sure I get the quote correctly. It was to inspect what you expect. Was something I learned from a mentor many many years ago. You have to inspect what you expect. So we don't always take the time to look at where we're using our assets because time is an asset. And when it comes to processes and procedures, right, there could be things that, as you mentioned, you don't need because it doesn't produce a result, right? There's the old idea of 80/20, that 20% of your activities produce 80% of your results, and 80% of your activities only produce 20% of results. And sometimes we could be focused on a lot of that 80% that doesn't give us a high rate of return because it seems cool, it seems nice, it seems like exciting, but it's not where you're getting the biggest return on your investment of your time, the return on your investment in terms of your business tools or assets. So looking at where you're getting the results from is critical in terms of increasing, moving forward, and making progress. And that is the critical things that we need to like work in our business, but also factor that in when we're working on our business.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that. Yes, sir. Couldn't have said it better myself. Listen, if you guys would like to see how Jerry and I are working inside of our business with certain tools and technology, to make sure you join us at technologytuesday.com. Come join the group and learn from us as we help navigate this ever changing world of AI and how it can help you grow your business. Make sure you tune in each and every week at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at technologytuesday.com. Until next week, guys, take care.